Judy, you're joining us today from where?
Addis Ababa?
Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Appropriate
Yep.
because we heard Hershey today talk about the prices of chocolate in Africa. Now, I'm not sure if that's what you're there for.
Well, this is East Africa
And that's West Africa is
versus
where
the
chocolate
chocolate in
comes.
West Africa.
Yeah.
But there are people here at this coffee conference from the Ivory Coast. So,
Okay. And so let's just jump right into it. First of all, Hershey, basically the story seems to be they are paying more for chocolate for two big reasons, tariffs and cocoa prices themselves. They're passing along some of those costs to consumers, some but not all, so their profits are down, which is what some economists sort of expected all along. But just your thoughts on that. That's my take on it. Just
right.
your thoughts on what's happening for a big sort of mass market chocolate company like Hershey.
Okay. So it actually has a little more nuance to it in that when companies forward purchase their chocolate, um, you know, to get those Easter bunnies and Valentine's Day candies on the market, okay, in the beautiful seasonal wrap, they have to plan this many, many months in advance to make the chocolate, get into the stores early, and to also have the shipment from the Ivory Coast or Ghana, okay, for their purchases. And so there's a really long lead time. And so the pricing of what they're working through, remember that a year ago, the market soared to $13,000 a ton. And while the market might be now a third of that price, the price they paid for the chocolate that went into the Easter bunnies and such, okay, was at a much higher level. So they're working down their margins, their average costs. And so they can't just drop the price now, okay, and roll everything back just because the market did, because their costs were much higher at the time of negotiating for the chocolate that's coming into the market. And also for bars. I mean, remember that there's four major holiday periods, and the vast majority of sales is actually the seasonal. So your Halloween, your back to school, your Valentine's Day, your Easter, and it all kind of runs together, right? And and that's done with intention. You hope you buy it early, consume it, have to buy more. You don't save it for your guests or to give it out for trick or treat, right? You indulge. And so the prices that are being seen now, they can't cut their price just yet. And so that's why sales are still sort of weak. Now, the other side to it is that they know that they just keep hiking their price or shrinking the package size, okay, to keep the price somewhat affordable for customers, that's not enough given the extremity of the moves. So they also fiddled with some recipes. And, so it's not just the packaging, the unit costs, but it's also how much cocoa butter and powder were used and, the qualities, or, did they include more cheaper ingredients to stretch the supplies?
And we talked about it last time when I talked to you from Indonesia about sort of is the whole question of is it really chocolate at some point? Some of the products at least
Yeah,
strictly
and
defined.
across this line, I mean, obviously Hershey tries to do their best at keeping it labeled as chocolate, whereas some companies have crossed the line where they can't even, really call it chocolate anymore.
Yeah.
Um, so, and are new product introductions really with chocolate, or are they more with confections? And so, companies are doing what they can in the most difficult environment this market has ever seen. And so, from that perspective, um, if Hershey and others are surviving this and hanging there and figuring out how to make it work, like kudos to them. It has been really, really tough.
And,
Um,
I just ask you quickly about tariffs as well, because that's
Well,
another piece of
the
this.
tariffs, were a short-term blip. Is the government going to pay them back? I mean, it was some nasty stuff. It was even worse for coffee because they tapped 50% on Brazil as the largest coffee producing country. But, when tariffs are added to a product that's at $2,000 a ton versus added to a product that's $9,000 per ton, it's painful. It's absolutely painful.
Yeah. So chocolate, it's still more the market price of cocoa than it is tariffs, but tariffs are
Yeah, yeah, no, the
baked in.
tariff issue went away because, the administration realized that we don't grow chocolate, and we don't grow cocoa and we don't grow coffee. And so, um, it's just hurting the manufacturers.
Well, I have you. I just want to ask you really quickly. You're in Addis Ababa talking about coffee. Just one thing that would surprise people like us who aren't in the weeds like you about the coffee market right now, because that's another thing where we've seen, obviously you don't have to be an expert. You are one, but for all those of us who aren't, we know what we were paying for coffee. We've seen the prices, soften a little bit. So yeah, coffee. What's just
Oh no,
one thought?
coffee prices are softening a lot.
Yeah.
So, part of the thing was that Brazil had poor weather. There's erratic growing conditions for successive years. And there were some people that were kind of on the path of saying, oh, they won't recover and that the trees are going to take a longer time. And coffee trees are pretty resilient. And all you need to do is high prices, sprinkle a lot of love, tender love and care on those trees, and some good weather. And guess what? Production on that's for the Brazilian crop that's going to be harvested, later this year is now forecast a record level.
And a perfect segue to my last question. Brazil also grows oranges. And the reason I'm asking about that,
Hmm.
we had all that, we had that deep freeze in Florida. I remember being in Florida for the deep freeze of 1989. I remember being there for the freeze of 2010. I remember back in 89, it was like, wow, all the oranges are freezing. This is going to send orange juice prices skyrocketing. But
And it did
back
at the
then,
time.
and it did at
Right.
the time, and this time less likely to happen. And I kind of know the answer to this next question because you told me last time we talked, but what has happened between then and now in terms of how important Florida is to the orange juice that we're all drinking?
Well, the fact is that we drink mostly Brazilian juice right now, as opposed to Florida juice. And so, just for one thing, everyone sees the dramatic photos of the oranges fully encased in ice, and that they think that there's like this freeze and all these icicles form on the trees, right? It doesn't happen that way. Okay. You have cold temperatures, but you don't get the ice gets inside the orange, right? But not this enrobing it with these massive icicles that you see, like it looks like it's like from like cave site, icicles like dripping down. um what it is the growers are actually spraying the trees with water in an attempt to keep the heat in the orange by enrobing it with the, in the icicle, and locking in the warmer temperature and trying to preserve it. Okay, so that's the
The ice
first
is
thing.
like
The
it's like a
dra- the
blanket.
drama,
Yeah.
the drama is actually growers trying to stop the damage from occurring and protecting the oranges. The second thing here is, first off, it's late in the season. Half the crop is off the tree ready. And the crop is only 12 million compared to 15 years ago when it was 244 million, right? So we're not talking a lot of oranges. And, so we've got what, 6 million on the trees. And because the cold lingered, so to have ice in the orange, it has to be 28 degrees Fahrenheit for at least 4 hours. And we certainly beat that. Okay. And but the cold lingered. It didn't, the temperature didn't just like warm up so the oranges became slush really fast as the ice melted. And so that they saved the fact that the cold lingered for 2 nights, bought them time because they could salvage and process the oranges before they went to mush and rotted.
It was actually a good thing how
And,
long
and
they
so
evolved. Yeah.
now those 6 million, are like every orange being pulled off the tree in rapid fashion to save them and process them really fast, adding to the supply.
I learn so much every time I talk to you. I know you have lots of coffee to write about and all kinds of other things, and it's late in Addis Ababa, and I am so appreciative that you jumped on with us. We will we'll let you get back to that, and
Thank you.
hope you'll pick up the phone another time when we have we have more
Yeah,
questions.
well,
Thanks so
you keep catching me, first in Indonesia, now now in Africa. So, where's Judy next?
We'll have to find out, but we will,
Yep.
yeah,
Stay
we
tuned.
absolutely, yeah, maybe you'll actually be in America next time. Who knows? Who knows? Anyway,
Maybe.
Judy Gaines, thank you so much.
A pleasure.